Hi again then guys, and welcome to the final review already. It hasn't taken that long to cover all 7 vehicles from the 1.31 patch, and of course before you know it we'll be at the next batch of cars, be that at the end of this month or at the start of the next one. Who really knows where it's going to be at this point. But the reason why I left this car until last is not the usual reason. Typically I would leave stuff like the Mini, for instance, from the last pack until last, because it tends to be a car that might surprise you, but most people aren't really excited for it. Whereas with the Tesla, it tends to be more of a 50-50 split. It's kind of a Marmite vehicle, as many electric cars are. You either really like it or you really don't. There aren't many people who are in between. I'm sure there are some, but not as many as most of the other cars in the pack. Now, as far as this vehicle goes, it's not really bringing anything radically new to the table compared to what it was in GT6. It's improved in, I would say, one way in particular, apart from the obvious one of the physics, but the one way in which I would say it's better than it was is that you can finally actually upgrade the power. You can get that single motor up to 540 horsepower instead of 420, which is of course the standard, whereas in GT6 you could only reduce the power or leave it stock. So that's a pretty cool development. However, there is the payoff that you cannot make it as light anymore. Now, I can't recall exactly how light it was in GT6 with the full weight loss package, but I think it might have been in the high 1400 to low 1500 region. Now it's over 1600 kilos, so it's considerably heavier, of course over 2 tons to begin with, primarily because of the battery pack. And as I said way back when I first reviewed this car, it might have even been in the potato camera days now, I can't even remember, but I mentioned that the problem with a vehicle like the Tesla is the exact same problem that I have with vehicles like the Aston Martin Rapide, my personal favourite car, the Ferrari FF, and a couple of others as well, wherein the reasons why it's such a good car and the things that make it as good as it is, you can't really experience in a game. The Aston Martin Rapide is not just a DB9 with 4 doors. It's all that that entails, all that that implies. It's the trunk space, the seats, the interior space, the luxury, the elegance. None of that matters in a game. With the Ferrari FF, it's the practicality, the 4 seats, etc. Again, irrelevant in a game. And with the Tesla, it's the exact same thing. It's all of the smaller details, the way it's engineered, the practicality, the 7 seats, the trunk space in the front and the back, the low-slung battery pack, etc. You just can't experience this stuff in a game. And the closest that you get to experience in those smaller details would probably be in a game like Test Drive Unlimited, where you could like put the roof down or open the windows, play around with the radio, that kind of stuff. But even then, it doesn't go that deep into the car's detail. So a car like this will always suffer in pretty much any racing game that doesn't allow it to be tuned. And the comparison can definitely be made there, because if you compare this Tesla to the Tesla that's in Forza, such as in Horizon 3, the difference is massive. You can tune that car to have way more power and it makes it extremely fast. Plus, it's the D model, and that is the mistake I think Polyphony might have made with this car, because even people who dislike Tesla could have at least got some use out of its performance. Unfortunately though, the fact that this is the Model S signature performance, the P85 Plus, as the badge on the boot says, it's unfortunate because it's not slow. It's faster, for instance, than the Fisker Karma, and it was one of the quickest electric cars in the game. But it's not quick enough to compete with anything really, unless you take it into really low classes, and that of course brings us to another downside. The class. Of course, I was going to mention it, it's in Group X. To the surprise of no one, but to the chagrin of many of us, it is unfortunate that it is in Group X, although of course it shouldn't be, but given that the BMW i3 already was, it's not a surprise at all. And that is a shame, because it's not exactly like this or the BMW are OP vehicles. They still don't really stand a chance because of their lack of top-end speed, and it's not like you can tune the transmission either. So to me, it's just a shame that they chose to add this same one again, because let's be honest, there's not that much of a visual update that you would have had to have done to give us the P85D, the P90D. The P100 of course does have a facelift, so that one perhaps, but you could have easily made this the P85D even, which makes a massive difference. I don't recall the power on that car, but I think it might have been somewhere in the 700 horsepower region, something like that, and even that one would have been monstrously quick. But this one, it's just such a limited car in terms of range of use. It's not particularly cheap at 92,000 credits. The power, as I said, is around 420. The torque is over 440 pound-feet. The weight is over 2 tons. Consequently, the horsepower per ton does suffer quite a bit. It's 209. But the performance itself, it's just so limited. Even in Group X, it's just not that quick a car. The acceleration is okay, but it's rear-wheel drive, so it doesn't even launch that quickly. The top speed is limited to around 135, no surprises there. And again, the 85D, the 90D, they are that much quicker. They can do around 155 miles per hour. They're still speed limited though to protect the batteries, etc. But that extra 20 or so miles per hour could make all the difference, because combined with the acceleration, it could make it a really useful car. Now, all of that, of course, is what woulda, shoulda, coulda, basically. What we've got is this one. So what can you do with it? Does it have any use at all? Well, earlier on today I showed at least one way that you can use it, and thankfully it's a way that doesn't necessarily depend on class, usually, because you'll do it in like a cruise lobby or a meetup lobby, maybe sometimes an official drift lobby, but that's down to, of course, the host of the room. You can make it into a drift car, and it actually makes a really good drift car for a number of reasons. One, it carries its weight very low. 2, you don't have to work up and down through a gearbox. 3, it's rear-wheel drive, which of course makes it that much better for drifting than the all-wheel drive would be, because that one has so much grip. And also, the fact that it is electric, it just delivers its torque and its power in a much more seamless way. So across the board, it's a great candidate for being one of the more oddball choices of drift car. So if you haven't checked out that tune that I did for it, then I would urge you to do so. You might have a lot of fun with it. But apart from that, there's just not that much you can do with it, and that is such a shame, because Tesla is one of the most forward-thinking companies out there at the moment, and regardless of what you think of them personally or what you think of Elon Musk, that's simply a fact. There are no other 7-seater, dual-trunk, 700-plus horsepower super saloons out there that can outlaunch a Nissan GT-R and still cost less to run per mile. That is this car. There is nothing else on the market at the moment. There are some which claim that they'll get there, but there's nothing else, especially not for the price. So it's just a shame that we got this one, which for its time, it felt good. You know, it was the top of the tree at the time, back in the, 2013 era, if you will. But now it's simply moved on. And Tesla has so many more models. You could have added the Model X, you could have added the new Roadster even. So I'm not usually one to say, I wish they'd have added this car instead. I don't often say that. But in the case of a Tesla, I think it's just a shame to have wasted having the brand in the game for the sake of a car that has next to no use. And that is a shame, because there are many people who don't care either way, and that's fair enough. If you just don't like electric cars, that's down to you. But there are plenty of us who do. And for those of us who do, of course, why wouldn't you want the 800, 900 horsepower or 900 pound-feet of torque version of the thing that you already like, which in this form has 400 horsepower? So it's kind of a mixed review for me, as it was last time. It's a car that I have a lot of respect for, a lot of love for. It's not like top 10 favourites for me anymore. I used to absolutely love this car. It was one of my dream favourites. It's not at that point anymore. I think I've kind of gotten bored of the design to some degree. But from a technological point of view, from an engineering point of view, I still love the Tesla Model S. It's probably still my favourite Tesla, actually. And it's just a shame that you don't get more of an opportunity to use it in the game. And I guess my forward-thinking thoughts for this car in particular, and for the Gran Turismo franchise, is that I hope the next game has a better class system. Because Group X is one of the worst decisions of the entire game. So I really hope that they learn from their mistakes this time, and learn from the backlash that the community constantly has over this issue. And I hope that they don't do it again, because it's ridiculous. And although in a game like GT Sport it could work, in a bigger game like GT7 for instance, that is not going to work. There are way too many cars, relatively normal cars like the BMW i3, that are going to end up in a class like that, and that will be really, really dumb. So I hope that they don't do that. But that's it for my thoughts overall. Of course, I will see you guys tomorrow with more vids, and of course, we'll carry on discussing the cars that we've already sometimes tuned, sometimes reviewed on the channel that were in the game since day one, at least until the next pack comes out. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.